Before you watch this episode of our City Current radio show, I want to invite you to join City Current's e-learning and online personal development platform called Growth Current. I'm Jeremy Park, host of the City Current radio show and CEO of City Current. Growth Current is your exclusive ticket to attend virtual events with global thought leaders, national guest speakers, and experts who can help you grow personally and professionally. It gives you access to success secrets, lessons learned, learning modules, and so much more. Being online, you can join us from anywhere in the world. Subscriptions are only $8 a month, or you can do bulk subscriptions for your team. Check out growthcurrent.com to learn more and to join us in our efforts to power the good. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of organizations and individuals making a difference, powering the good in our community. We're going to kick it off talking about My Friend's House. We are joined by their Executive Development Director, Laura Jumonville. And then we also have Juanda Moore, Executive Program Director, both obviously with My Friend's House. And so how are you two lovely ladies doing?
Great. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Let's start with a little history lesson. So give us, Laura, on your end, give us a little bit of a history lesson for My Friend's House.
Okay. So My Friend's House is a boys group home in Franklin, Tennessee. We were founded in 1982 by Judge Jane Franks. She was a juvenile court judge, and she kept seeing young teens in her courtroom who didn't have a home, and she didn't know where to take them or what to do. So she actually started a program for a co-ed house, and it quickly turned into a single sex. And we serve boys ages 12 to 18 that are in state custody in our group home.
Paint the picture of what the boys and the youth have gone through, because they've gone through some very difficult circumstances. And so you're providing the physical shelter, but there's a lot to unpack. So kind of illustrate a little bit of just what these boys have gone through in their lives.
Okay. Abuse, neglect, a lot of neglect, lack of supervision, death of one or more parents that are incarcerated and can't care for them, no extended family that can step in. So Children's Services tries to go through all the options first before they take them into custody. And some are reunited with their homes. Some are not, or some don't have a home. So they've been through a lot of trauma. They've had a lot of trauma, and some have some juvenile charges, but those are usually stem from the neglect and the abuse that they have suffered as young boys.
Dive in onto, it's not just the physical shelter. There is the nourishment, and that's the physical with the food. It's the spiritual and the mentoring and the program. So walk us through kind of the holistic approach you take to really help these boys and these young men.
Yeah. Go ahead, Wanda.
That would be me. We give them a balance of safety, structure, encouragement, care, and expectations and stuff. So we focus on their strengths and assets, and they receive, individual counseling, individual therapy, case management. They have interactions in the community. We go to church. They have church functions, and they have Life Resurgence, which is a group they go to every week for all the boys to participate in. We utilize mostly innovative methods and techniques, even with our staff training, to teach them how to de-escalate themselves and become responsible for their own actions and their responsibility as themselves.
When you look at, and you mentioned kind of obviously the de-escalation and the coping side of this, right? So
right.
They've gone through a lot, and then it's the adjustment of, okay, I've got to unpack that and figure out how to build stability, but also a solid foundation for my future. Talk about those two dynamics of making sure their past doesn't become their future, but also giving them a solid foundation to build on within those coping mechanisms.
Well, with anyone, when you experience certain things, if you don't deal with them, you become stagnant. And they get engulfed in these behaviors, although they're survival coping that they're utilizing, they're not healthy. So we have to teach them to unlearn those unhealthy things, and then we implant in them the appropriate coping mechanisms so they can deal with their emotions. because most of them that enter there, they really do not have the ability to de-escalate themselves or regulate their own emotions. So all of this carries on to every aspect of their life, in the community, at school, all those things. And most of them have school problems because of those behaviors. So we have to program them with coping strategies that are appropriate in the settings that they'll be in.
How do they form their own support network with each other? Because I think that's a piece of this too.
Yeah.
Yes, it's interesting too to watch the group dynamics and who's what in the group and who takes the lead in the group, and the main one that can calm everybody down. I mean, you watch them imitate behaviors, you know, whether positive or negative, they learn from their social context. So by living together, we always want to try, or we hope that they will learn appropriate things by watching one another and imitating, versus the old ways they're used to coping through drugs or whatever else. So you can see the group dynamic working as soon as a new kid enters the building, because they'll start imitating what they see.
How long do they typically stay? So I know it ranges, but talk about kind of what the typical length is for the young men.
4 to 6 months.
So that's a pretty, I mean, it's long enough, but it's short in the scheme of things to be able to impart that knowledge, work together, kind of give them that foundation. So on both ends, it goes by pretty fast. At the same time, you think that's a decent amount of time, but it goes by quickly. Share.
Yes, it goes by quickly.
You're there at the house, and you've got a lot going on in terms of volunteers there and everything else. But give us a little bit of kind of what a typical day looks like there at the house.
A typical day is we focus everything on the schedule. That's the first thing, the structure. So they have to be up, say on a school day, they get up at 5. They have to do their hygiene. Then they have to clean their rooms. Then they go and have breakfast. Then they have chores after that. So after the chores and everything, everybody's done with all they have to do that morning. Then we leave about 6:45 to take them to school. They stay at school all day. They usually get back to the house about 3:30. Depending on the day of the week, depends on what's next on the schedule. It may be a group day where we go to Life Resurgence. It may be a day that one of our volunteers is coming over to do recreation with them, and I must participate, because then they're interacting with positive adults, you know, and learning how to utilize sports and reading and drawing and crafts and things like that, painting and whatnot, as a coping strategy. And then they realize all of this stuff helps minimize their behaviors. So if it's generalized, if we can get them to generalize the appropriate behavior, then we've had a good success with a kid, because they're going back, most of them, to the same environment. And when that happens and they get the help they need and they go back into the home and no one's been working with the home, then you can tell a difference, and they feel like, I did all this work and no one else is working, because we all have something going on that detoured us, even if it's just our perspective, which is our reality, you know? So if they feel like no one else is changing or doing anything different, then they'll quickly go back to what they know and what's easiest. So we also have case management in the community through OmniVisions, that they follow those kids home from our program, and they continue to work with them approximately 90 days so that we can make sure the transition is smooth.
Yeah, it's a great point of when you put them back into that situation, has the situation changed any, you know, and trying to create some momentum there. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Give us a success story. You don't have to name any names specifically, but you know, share some success stories, the impact.
I'll let Laura do this part. She loves this part.
Well, one of my favorites is a young man who came into our program, and Juanda, who's been in this world for many years, knew him because he had been in state custody for a very long time. And he was 15, and he came in very angry and agitated. And Juanda, we were all like, why is he here? And Juanda really wanted to give him a chance because she knew him. But he didn't have a place to go after this. He knew he didn't have a mom to go home to or a dad to go home to. So his hope level was really low. And so he was very agitated, aggressive with staff, aggressive with the other boys. You know, I thought, how in the world are we going to do anything here? And it turns out he had an older sister who was 26, and Children's Services got in touch with her, and she said he can come to my house if he works the program. And so that gave him some hope and something to work toward. And he had been refusing to take medication that helps him with his anxiety. And so he started taking that medication, and you could see him calming down. And the really cool thing with him is he knew what he needed to change about his behavior and his anger management and how he treated others. And he started vocalizing it really quickly that, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So like, that's a good step when you can say, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And then,
right.
And then he got to a point where he would stop and go, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get in a fight with this person or say something ugly or get into it. I'm going to walk away. And he would start verbalizing it. And he was very vocal about it, like in such a good way. And it affected the others too. And every morning he'd wake up and say, I'm going home, just to remind himself. And so he did finally go home to his sister in Orlando. It was a big day. He just made such a really fast turnaround, and he was really vocal about it, and it affected the other boys too. And they were really all upset when he left, which made it hard on everybody. And I was really upset too, because we got so attached to him. And, but just seeing that turnaround and the vocalization of, I need to improve this behavior, or I need to not do this behavior, it was really good, because he affected everyone as well as himself. So that was a great story. And he did that all in about 3 months. He just wham, turned it around.
Yeah, that's very fast.
Yeah.
It's just the self-awareness piece. And I think, you
exactly.
mentioned hope. I feel like hope is a big part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's easy to feel hopeless in the situation that these boys and young men are going through. But if you give them hope, and I feel like this is a cultural thing, like for all of youth, if you provide hope and they see a real opportunity for themselves, that's when their trajectory can change, their attitude, their sense of awareness, like all of these things.
Right.
But if they feel hopeless, it's easy to go down this path of destruction versus hopeful, and they see a positive trajectory. And that's everything you're talking about.
Yeah. So
I frequently tell Miss Laura, I say, Miss Laura, I got to figure out what his carrot is. Right. Everyone has a carrot. I just got to figure out what it is, and we can use that to help build them and get them on track, But if you're right, if they're hopeless and they have no hope in anything, then it's kind of like we're just spinning our wheels, and not getting anywhere.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it looks really different for every boy that comes to our house.
Right.
That carrot or that what they want. And when you're working with human beings, it's not a one size fits all ever. You have to work with that individual and take into account what they want, what their hope might be. And we don't know what that is when they walk in the door. We have to figure that out. And sometimes they don't know. So that's the whole thing about working with humans and individuals. It's a one person at a time approach.
Right.
That
Nothing
really makes a difference.
Yeah. That's part of the magic though, of what, when you look at the success on your end, that's part of that magic is the individualized approach. Share how we can help as the community. So talk about volunteerism. I know that when you talk about a house, there's all sorts of physical needs and things that need to be done. So how can the community help?
Well, the number one thing you could do in the community to help us is make a donation. Hate to say it, but we need dollars to operate. We get some of our funding from the state, but it doesn't nearly cover our operating costs. And our biggest overhead is staff. We're staffed 24/7, 365 days a year. We have 3 shifts running all the time. It is very important to have this trained staff here on hand with the boys all the time to redirect and encourage and move them in the right direction. So paying that salary, which is very minimal when you work here, is important. The other thing is we have tremendous food needs because we're feeding 8 teenage boys 3 meals a day, and they are wolves. They just wolf it down. They're never full. So anytime you want to sign up to bring a meal or come in the house and cook a meal with the boys, that's a great one, because that helps our overhead too a great deal. And volunteers come from everywhere, and it's amazing. We enjoy so much having the volunteers here. Today they're doing yard work, organizing a closet, repairing outside gutters, cleaning out gutters. They are in our laundry room making improvements. They're setting up our clothing closet. They're doing all kinds of stuff. We have 12 volunteers here for the day, and they've made a tremendous impact. So if a group comes in and we're prepared, we get a whole lot done. And we always need repairs and painting and yard work. And so there's never a shortage of what a volunteer could do. So we rely heavily on the community. And one reason we're still here is because we're in a generous community in Williamson County, and a lot of group homes have not survived. And I clearly believe we're here because of where we're placed and the support that we have and the people that come around us every single day. Yeah.
Right.
Well, the last question is the easy question is, where do we go to learn more? So website, social media, phone number, where would you direct us to get involved?
So I would go to our website, myfriendsHouseTN.org. It has everything on there and all the information about how to volunteer, and find all our social media channels and follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter. It's myfriendsHouseTN.org. So
make it easy. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Laura, Wanda, thank you for all you and your team do.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.